All right, let me do an audio check here. See how everything's doing. All right. What's going on, everyone? Just waiting for the audio to come up, and we'll see where we are. All right, let me do an audio check here. Okay. All right. We are live. Oh, yeah. As the title says, I got my good friend Billy Carson on here. Thank you, Billy, for taking time out on your very busy schedule. I'm glad to have you here. I've been telling my subs about this, that you'd be on, so it's great to have you. What's going on?
Oh man, it's been an amazing last 3 weeks. Starting out with coming up here to see you and filming part of the Black Knight satellite documentary with you that you're going to be in, and then just traveling around the country, meeting up with astronomers and astrophysicists and researchers and archaeologists. I literally just got back home since the last time I saw you, so I'm pretty excited, man. It's been a busy fall so far.
I can see that. Remember, I was when Billy and he was up here like a couple weekends ago. We were up there, and I was like, dude, you got more flyer miles than I got hair follicles. And I said, unbelievable. But I love that because you're doing the work, you're putting the work in. And like I was telling these guys here, that when you go to other countries, you're not just going with a simple, guide and stuff like that. You're going behind that and getting better guides, whether it be actual people from villages like shaman, different people of knowledge. And so you're getting it personally straight from, I think, is a better source, right? So you're getting it from a better source, and you're passing it on, this knowledge, to the public, and I think that's awesome.
Yeah, man. That's what it's all about. When I decided to really get into this, like make it like part of my lifestyle, this was probably, I would say, 25 years ago when I said I need to incorporate travel into what I'm doing. And I took my first trip to the Yucatan Peninsula in Chichen Itza. And when I went out there, I made sure I had homegrown guides, homegrown archaeologists. I wanted to make sure everything was as authentic as possible without any mainstream influence. I wanted to be as close to the truth as I possibly can get. And it was such a great experience. I said, this is it. From now on, this is exactly what I'm going to do. And so it really, going back 25 years up until today, I've been around the world 3 times. I've been to a lot of ancient sites. I've spent close to $250,000 out of my own pocket on travel. This is long before social media even existed. I was already close to those numbers. Fortunately, I had businesses and things that I was running that were fairly successful where I can fund myself. But I wanted to go out there and get the research in person. I wanted to hear it, smell it, touch it, feel it. I wanted to get the original stories, or as close to the original stories as I could, and bring that back to the people and let them have a chance to do some research. Let them have a chance to put that on their bucket list and make that trip themselves and see it for themselves, versus what you're just getting in these regular standardized textbooks,
Right. I mean, it's like, I guess it goes back to the original question. Like, how old were you when you started saying, my God, there's just so much more to life, and there's so much more out there that I want to delve into this. I want to see what's really going on, because I've explained to these guys, my subscribers, and by the way, guys, we'll have a Q&A, and I see you guys all in there, all you, most of you normal criminals there. Good to have you guys in there, as always. So we're just going to get into a lot of this here, and if you guys want to, throw some questions in after, we'll do that. But I was telling these guys, like, even back in 5th grade, they had like this project. You can make anything you like. What do you think I made? Astronaut. So I had the microphone, the CB microphone I put on there, connected everything. I was like the astronaut, and because I don't know what it was, from like day one, I was like so intrigued with everything about space. It's almost like subconsciously you knew you were part of something much different than what you really, like the average person sees, right? So it's kind of like they just go, I see what everybody else sees, no big deal. But you see it differently. You see, like, I just feel like I'm part of something else, something much larger. Now, when did you feel like, roughly around the age you were, like, man, I don't know what it is. I just feel different inside, like almost like you have a calling, if you want to call it that. What do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I always felt different from the time I was a young kid. Going back to just being, well, at 10 months old, I was already walking. I was reading children's books at the age of 1.
Mm.
By the time I was like a little bit over 1, I read my first novel, and that was Jack London. The author was Jack London, and the book was called The Sea Wolf.
Right.
That was the first novel that I actually read. I think it was probably maybe just a little under 200 pages. And I knew from that time when I was just watching my sibling, my brother at that time, play and talk and things like that, that I was a little bit different.
Mm.
And then when my sister came along a little bit later, I noticed again that some of the things, and I just felt like I was a little bit more, for whatever reason, a little older in my mind. I always had that. And when I was about 7 years old, in my backyard in Opelika, Florida, going back to 1977, there was a craft that came over my backyard. Now, we lived close to the Opelika airport.
Mm-hmm.
There would be planes going over the backyard, and I would just go out there and look at them by myself, just hanging out in the backyard and just observing, believe it or not, as a kid, how long it took for the plane to go from one part of the horizon to the other side of the horizon. It just intrigued me, you know?
Yeah, absolutely.
And one day, this object came across, and it went across the horizon in seconds, not minutes. And right away, I knew I saw something amazing.
Yeah.
It didn't have a fuselage, it didn't have a tail fin, it didn't have a cockpit. I knew what a plane looked like. Now, the words UFO and flying saucer didn't exist in my vocabulary.
Right.
You got to remember, back then, there was no cable TV. There was no all, 24 hours a day Cartoon Network and all this. We had 4 channels on TV, and those could barely come in. You had to have the right kind of foil angle on your antennas to even see any TV. But what I knew, I saw something that was weird. And so I hypothesized that maybe this could be from under the ocean, or it could be from outer space. And around that time is when I literally, realized I have a path that I'm going to be on. I went to the Rainbow Park Elementary library, took down all the encyclopedias on aerospace the next day,
Mm-hmm.
and started researching aerospace. The thing that's so crazy about the law of attraction, literally a week later, knock, knock, knock at the door. Who was it? The encyclopedia salesman. And they gave my mom a full set of Encyclopedia Britannicas, and I was like in complete heaven. Now I had science, I had physics, I had economics, I had biology, I had everything. You know what I'm saying? So,
which is sweet.
I lived in those books.
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like, it's almost like it's like you have this different way of thinking, and you just want to fulfill and fill that void, and just knowledge. You want to get that knowledge in. Now, as far as like moving forward, what's the first thing that really intrigued you as far as ancient, like, ancient sites and stuff like that? I know first thing for me was Egyptian, like the pyramids and stuff like that. What was it for you that got you triggered and you were like, oh my God, I just want to see more of this. What do I do?
It definitely was the Egyptian pyramids, for no doubt about it. The pyramids at Giza. The reason why I went to the Yucatan Peninsula first on my first big trip was because I couldn't at that time get to Egypt. I couldn't afford to go to Egypt at that time. And so I said, well, I'll go to Yucatan Peninsula. But I became hooked on the pyramid at that time. I was already researching and studying the pyramids for many years before that, but I knew that was on the top of my bucket list. And I'm gonna tell you, it's nothing like any drone footage. I don't care if it's 20K drone footage. There's nothing like being there in person. You just can't replace seeing it with your own eyes and standing next to that structure. The structure is so massive that when you stand next to it, it creates a time well. And your time actually slows down for you when you stand next to the Great Pyramid. It's amazing.
Oh, yeah. I mean, just those things alone, like you said, you just can't fathom it until you've been there. That's on my bucket list. I love to be able to go.
Man.
Because I know I've seen on your social site where you're actually literally there. So it's not like you're, BSing anyone, right? You've been to Angkor Wat. You've been over in Cambodia. You've been to many of these sites. Now, that one to me is intriguing. Angkor Wat. That is insane.
Man.
Well, here's the thing. They want you to believe, that all of this was built with like little brass, little chisels, and little hammers and stuff like that. I mean, when you listen to Brian Forrester, stuff like that, I mean, oh my God, this guy's amazing. To be able to delve into these things and see what this guy, in fact, I was just watching one of yours on your site on Forbidden Knowledge TV where he talks about that. And I think it was a very short video because you can watch a longer one too. But I think it was like 6 minutes and like 5 seconds. I forget what it was, somewhere around there. But really, really amazing stuff. And it's like almost once you see that, you just want more.
Yeah.
Like I want to devour everything that's ancient. I just want to see what else is out there. And that's probably what you end up doing, right? You're just like, that's it. I'm out. I'm going everywhere.
Everywhere. Because I started seeing everything was connected. You know, I was like, wow. So Angkor Wat, again, the temples are megalithic temples. The blocks are fused together with no mortar. You know, it's like, how did they do this? Some super massive blocks at Angkor Wat. And what was so amazing to me, I hiked 37 miles through the jungle to all those temples. And as you go deeper into the jungle, you come closer to the future in construction.
Yep.
So as you start off at the most famous Angkor Wat temple,
right,
you get megalithic, and the further you go into the future from that building date, the smaller the blocks got.
Exactly.
You know?
So that's how you knew it was the newer ones. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
The newer ones are falling apart. There's some of them I couldn't even get to because after getting all the way there, their construction has them roped off and they're trying to kind of reassemble them or whatever. And I'm like, wow, the newer ones are dilapidated, built with smaller bricks, couldn't withstand time. The older ones standing rock solid.
Yeah, I mean, well, the way they're built, I mean, like, even though you've got like the Egyptians where you have, they had the soft stone is now gone, right, the outer layer, and now you have the actual megalithic blocks actually decaying. But how long have they been there? I mean, we couldn't build a structure today that could last that long.
No,
it's impossible. So what's the age now? What are they saying the age on that? I know they're saying that the Sphinx may be a lot older as opposed to the pyramids. There was also a question about did the Egyptians actually make it, or was it somebody else prior? So give us a little background on that. What did you find in your research?
In my research, I find that Thoth, Thoth, built the Great Pyramid and also the Sphinx. Now, when you were looking at the age of the Giza Plateau and the pyramids and the Sphinx, we're talking about super ancient. The numbers that they give us in mainstream, erase it from your brain. It doesn't exist, okay? This 5,000-6,000 year thing,
oh, I know.
Ridiculous.
Silly.
Just by the weathering alone on the Sphinx, you have to go back at least to the last ice age, at least.
Yep.
But when you look at the astronomical alignment, which is the most important part, you're going to see that if you go back 2 precessional periods, that's the movement of the constellations across the sky, you'll find that you're right at 36,000 years where the Sphinx perfectly aligns with Leo, the constellation of Leo, and it's at a perfect time period for the construction of the Giza Plateau in terms of tranquility and peace, and the fact that Thoth himself, according to the Emerald Tablets, shows up in the land of Kem, which we now know as the land of Egypt. This is obviously pre-dynastic era, to help bring mankind back up to a higher level of civilization, meaning at one point in the past, before the Great Flood, because this first scene opens up in the books, in the tablets, after a Great Flood had receded. So prior to that Great Flood and the mud sweeping over, there was a higher level of civilization in the time of Tep-Zepi, Zep-Tepi. And so after that mud and everything came and all the waters receded, Thoth shows up and he begins to rebuild the land of Kem. He builds this great Sphinx. He builds a great pyramid. In his own words, he said, I builded the Great Pyramid. And he built it in such a way that it would stand the test of time. So in my opinion, the Great Pyramid could be between 36 to 40,000 years old.
Yeah, it's not the first time I've heard that either. And it kind of coincides with what the Egyptians say in their writings. They said, we built the pyramids with the help of our gods, or the overseers. Now, are they referring to Thoth, or are they referring to others as well?
No, they're referring to Thoth and Isis and Osiris and Ra. You know, they're called the Netiru. So the Netiru are the ancient gods of old. They are the original Atlanteans. Some know them as the Anunnaki. Anunnaki is a generalized term for any being that comes from space to Earth or from heaven to Earth. It doesn't matter what star system they're from. It's a generalized term. This particular race of beings, they literally were the Atlanteans, or developed the Atlantean civilizations around the entire planet. And also, we believe now that they were interplanetary based off of the anomalies that you have been discovering, I've been discovering, and many other great researchers now have been discovering.
Yeah, that's just awesome. I mean, I'll show these guys, because look at, I can show you, right, guys. If you want to buy a book, this is the book they have right there. That's it right there. That's Billy's book, The Emerald Tablets, The Beginner's Guide. And I love, Billy, I love the way you break this down into like layman's terms when you get to the 10 tablets. That's the bomb right there. I'll be honest with you, I didn't finish the whole book, but I did get right into all of those tablets. And I love the way you broke it down, because if you were to read these things, there's no way, right? They have to be broken down the correct way in order to be able to read them properly. And so many people have made that mistake. And, here's your page right here, forbiddenknowledge.tv. And, of course, you can browse this. Guys, if you want. Now, Billy, how much is it to be on this site?
Oh, it's very cheap. We try to make it so cheap that anybody can afford it. It comes out to be like about a little bit less than 25 cents a day, $7 and change a month to have access to Forbidden Knowledge TV, which gives you access to literally thousands of shows, thousands of videos, not only just documentaries, lectures, workshops, and of course, a lot of anomaly videos, but also exclusive series, and we have yoga, meditation classes, exercise and training courses in there. So it's a lot. We even have financial in there, and the financial videos are going to be even more enhanced because we're doing a whole new financial series. Right. We want people to know that, in this society, we're playing in a financial matrix at this time. We're going to teach you how to manipulate this financial matrix and make it, curve to your benefit and your family's benefit. So we've got a lot of great stuff in there, and this is all accessible, man, just for that same couple of pennies a day, really, man. And you have access to a lot of great content and a lot of phenomenal anomaly videos, most of which are on there by you, Chris, and Mars Anomalies, and some other great researchers as well.
Yeah, I'm actually scrolling through it right now. I know you have your other computer on, and I'm scrolling through it now, and I'm just keep going, man. I'm just like, where does this thing stop? I mean, look, you can see even mine is just popping up now. Lunar Anomalies and Beyond. We have Mars Anomalies down there, and we're going to probably try to make exclusive, videos for that particular site. So if anybody gets on there, they can say, well, I already see his videos here on YouTube. Why would I want to go to that? Well, I'm part of this page as well, this TV, Forbidden Knowledge, and it's something we want to add to it all the time if we can. And of course, you got What's Up in the Sky, Will Ferrar. You got look at meditation, meditation, the whole 9 yards, man. I mean, everything from informational music, Donnie Arcade, people like that. I mean, just awesome stuff. And I said that right from the word go, that I'm not really big on rap, but I'll tell you what, I love the way he dropped knowledge through his music. So Emerald Tablets is probably my favorite. I told you that before. But I mean, everything from, like you said, conscious music to financial channel. I mean, you guys name it. There's something in it for everyone. Let's put it that way. Like you said, fitness, food, because a lot of people, I don't know about you, but I'm always saying I want to eat healthy, all this stuff, and I end up not doing that. I mean, I'm like, man, I'd love to have some ideas how to, what to eat, and so I find that really interesting to have just about everything on this site. So it's awesome. So yeah, guys, you'll get the link to it as always. Everything we have, every link we have, we'll get it from Billy, and then we'll just go ahead and drop it there in the comment section. I always leave it in the pinned post. You guys know that. And then you guys can get all the links to everything we share. So yeah, I mean, you also have another one too. I guess it's the same. It's kind of like a YouTube, only Forbidden Knowledge type thing too. But it's the same one though, right?
Yeah, 4BTube. It's my video platform, and I'm trying to build that up so that I can have a platform for content creators to move to if YouTube decides to demonetize them.
Right.
Or if they just want to double up with their videos in both places, and you can monetize your video content over there with much easier requirements. I even have a social media platform called Unite the 99, which is a privately owned social media platform outside of Instagram and Facebook, because as you know, Instagram and Facebook have been randomly just deleting accounts left and right, especially in the conscious community.
Yep.
So we want to be able to still get our word out and bring our message to the world. So I created Unite the 99. You can go on uniteth99.com, get the app on the App Store. Also for Apple and Android, it's a 5-star app, and you can post content, post links, just like it's a combination of Instagram and Facebook features in one place. Yeah.
Architect, I think you were saying, but free means adverts. Well, you're right. I mean, but it takes money to run these, these servers and stuff like that. And, I know a lot of you guys like yourself, Billy. I know you pay X amount of dollars every single month for these servers to be
Yeah.
up, and because you got to remember the content you're throwing on these things. It's not like, well, we'll put 50 videos up and that's it. I mean, these
Yeah.
are like incredibly amounts of money. So it's kind of like, yeah, you have to do that at some point, to help maintain and stuff like that. It's not about being the greedy thing, you know what I mean? It's about saying, listen, I've got to maintain this.
Yeah,
So,
it's cost thousands of dollars.
Yeah.
Literally a month. Thousands to keep everything.
I mean, it's not easy. I mean, to, like I said, to maintain. But to me, if I can go to a place that has knowledge about anything I want to know, I don't care if it's, like I said, ancient archaeology, ancient technologies. I don't care what it is, because that's what floats my boat. I like anything that's got to do with UFOs or any of that sort, ancient stuff. It's like, because they kind of go together, right? If you think about it, it's like, perfect example. You read about the Sumerians. What does that story start from, and where does it end up? Now, do they talk about the moon as well as Mars, like the stopover or the way they mined? What's your and in your research, what have you found?
Yeah, so basically now the story of this the Sumerian tablets is really an amazing story, because when you look at the Atrahasis epic or the Enuma Elish and the 7 tablets of creation, you can find for yourself the story as it is.
Mm-hmm.
Zechariah Sitchin did a phenomenal job bringing his interpretation of these tablets to the world, but you don't have to just rely on Zechariah. You can actually do it yourself, which is what I like about being a researcher.
Right.
So you can say, oh, this person tried to debunk this and just, no, well, why don't you just go find out yourself?
Right.
Then you don't have to worry about this debunk and that debunk, because the tablets have been deciphered for hundreds of years. Mm-hmm. Long before even Zechariah Sitchin was even born, the tablets were already deciphered. So he didn't decipher or translate anything. It was already done.
Right.
He just wrote his interpretations in books. So the tablets are there for you, me, everybody in this generation. You can look on the UCLA CDLI cuneiform online library. You can take a tablet off the virtual shelf and drop it into a translator and read everything, all on your own. And so what I found is the story of Sitchin and Gerald Clark and many other researchers that have looked into these tablets is very similar.
Yeah.
There are little changes or discrepancies here and there, but for the most part, beings came here from another planet, some from, according to researchers, from another star system completely, like, for example, the Pleiades, Orion, the Sirius star system. Some from another planet named Nibiru that orbits a brown dwarf star that's got gravitationally locked with our sun, so we're in a binary system. Either way, beings from another planet, somewhere out there, came here to this planet, not only to this planet, but also the other planets in our solar system, and started a mining operation. I don't think it was just for gold. I think they were mining multiple types of resources. Mm-hmm. They also kickstarted a breakaway civilization in which they literally ran kind of rogue. When they got from underneath the rule, it's almost like what I see when I read these tablets. It's almost like, me and you have kids. So, when your kids finally get a little bit of freedom and they go out, at first they're a little cautious, but after a while they get kind of used to the freedom and they get a little, they can get themselves into a little trouble. You got to keep reminding them, don't go with this person. Don't let this person get in your car. Don't do this, don't do that. Don't forget, because once they realize that the control arm is released, or the level of control is released from them, and they can do whatever they want, nobody can stop them, they're prone to make a few mistakes growing up. That's all part of the growing up process. Well, these Anunnaki, they did the same thing. Mm-hmm. So what I found was that they literally, they realized at some point that, wow, wait a minute. If we do this, nothing's going to happen. Nobody can see us doing this right now. If we decide to do a genetic modification, if we interact with this species of beings over here and utilize them for our own purposes, if we do this, if we do that. So they started breaking their own codes of conduct, really. Mm-hmm. And this is throughout the tablets. You see that they're breaking their own codes of conduct. And in some cases, they even say that the creator of all will get them for this. They'll have to pay. At some point in time, they will pay dues to the creator of all. So they actually had another entity that they believed was above them. So obviously they knew that there was a creator God, at least in their minds, and they were masquerading as gods. So they create these breakaway civilizations, and they become almost like a wild, wild west. Our solar system becomes like a wild, wild west. They start fighting each other
Mm-hmm.
They import illegal weapons into our star system, nuclear type weapons. They were actually weapons of mass destruction. They start using those on each other. This can be found in the Mahabharata. This can be found in the Bhagavad Gita. This can be found in the Sumerian tablets. These weapons of mass destruction are prominent in the ancient tablets and texts from all over the world. The battle ensued, battles in the sky, palaces fighting in the sky, according to the indigenous peoples.
Mm-hmm.
And they made a mess of things here, man. They really made a mess. They put a system over us on this planet, us meaning the human beings, the Homo sapien, that really locked us into not only a physical slavery, but also a mental slavery.
Mm-hmm.
And then, they had a couple of nuclear wars here, and eventually some left and some stayed. But they reigned for quite some time on this planet.
So now, you actually literally killed that question I was going to ask you, because I was going to say, now, does the stories in the Mahabharata where they talk about these large cities in the sky fighting with weapons brighter than the sun, so this is pretty much part of that story, you're saying?
It's part of the story,
yeah.
All those stories are interconnected. Those are just the stories that are given from different perspectives of people in different regions of the planet. But they're all talking about the same exact wars that occurred on this planet and also in space.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason why Mars was called the god of war is not so much because of the color, because the original color of Mars wasn't that reddish tint before the wars.
Mm-hmm.
It's called the god of war because there was a real life battle going on between the Atlanteans that extended from Earth to the moon and to Mars.
Mm-hmm. So that's what we're seeing now. We're seeing what looks like a ruined civilization on Mars. Now, what do you believe? Do you think they're just like Earth? In other words, we have ancient civilizations here as well as very advanced, technologies and stuff like that. Do you believe it's the same thing on Mars, or do you believe, in your research, in your opinion, do you believe that it's, which word I want to use, do you think they had this same kind of thing? In other words, that ancient people and then they had, more modern. Do you think they're similar to us?
I think that Mars had a combination of both. But Mars, I think there were two, according to the tablets, there were two civilizations running concurrently. One civilization on Earth, which was held back technologically and suppressed technologically. Only the gods had access to the technology. Then you had the Igigi, which started working on Mars by themselves. The Igigi are the working class Anunnaki, according to the Epic of Atrahasis. So these Igigi working class Anunnaki beings, they were up there doing strip mining of the planet Mars. They created a breakaway civilization there. They moved in. They were all male. There were no females.
Right.
They did this for a couple 100,000 years. So they had created an advanced civilization on Mars, far advanced than what was accessible on Earth. At one point, according to these epics, they decided to come to Earth. These are the gods that fell from heaven, according to Genesis in the Bible. They fell from Earth to heaven because they were mad at God. God was Anu, Anunnaki, named after Anu, the father of the Anunnaki, the main character. They decided to fall to Earth, and they tried to go against his sons, Enki and Enlil, who were the kings of Earth at that time, because they were tired of the labor. They had no women. That was their complaint. They had no women.
Hey.
And they weren't like, dude, like, we're not slaves. What are we doing all this work for nonstop? Like, we can't even get a break.
Right.
So Enki and Enlil, they were encircled. And Enki came up with the solution, like, we can genetically modify the existing hominid on this planet, thereby creating a slave race to do the workload for you. So an agreement was made. The Igigi backed down, and they went and snatched up some women. And those are, again, in the Bible, the gods of, the sons of God, many with the daughters of men. They snatched these women up and took them back to Mars with them.
Right.
So you're going to see a mixture of what we call maybe dynastic era or pre-dynastic era type megalithic structures in combination with advanced technology or advanced structures as well on Mars. It was kind of a mix. Overall, I believe Mars technologically was far more advanced than we were on Earth.
Yeah, I mean, I was thinking the same thing, because I've always said to these guys, too, in my research, I found that, and of course, it was pure speculation, because I can't literally go there and prove it, right? But I've always said that I believe we were like surviving civilizations on both planets. Mars had a really bad catastrophe, and then either it died off, or they made it to this planet as well, what was left of them, whatever the case was. Now, in your opinion, how do you think Mars actually ended, though? Who do you think had the last word, so to speak, or the last bomb, if you will, or whatever you like?
Well, Mars had a couple of catastrophes, so I'll start with the first one. The first catastrophe that Mars had, according to the Enuma Elish and the Seven Tablets of Creation, which would have been millions of years ago, by the way, was when Tiamat, Mars used to be a moon, most likely, of Tiamat. Tiamat was a planet that was about 6 times larger than Earth, a water-bearing world with solid rock ground and advanced beings on it. And it was the planet. We had Mercury, Venus, Earth. I mean, Mercury, Venus, Earth didn't exist yet. Mercury, Venus, and then you had Tiamat. I'm sorry, yes, Tiamat. Then what happened was during this planetary collision, or either a galactic war, one of the two. It's not really clear because you can't tell if it's an allegory or a real war. And It's up to your own discernment. But either way, Tiamat was destroyed. And it literally exploded. When it exploded, Mars used to be a moon of this Tiamat. So Mars was orbiting Tiamat, not the sun. And it exploded. One side of the side that Mars was facing Tiamat took a brunt of the hit. Right. And now 2 things happened. One is that's why the equator line can be measured now gravitationally. We know that it tilted. Yeah. There was a pole shift of the crust of Mars from that impact because of the extra weight on one side. Then also on Mars, you see one side is completely charred and the other side is completely smooth. Yeah. So my personal hypothesis, this is my personal hypothesis, that side is the side that took the hit from Tiamat during the explosion. Then a lot of other debris, it spread out, became the asteroid belt, and some of it became the planet Ceres, which is just outside the orbit of Mars. And then another huge chunk swept away and recoalesced and became the Earth. And gravitationally, it tugged a moon of Tiamat with it, which is now our moon, which has now, I think, been worked into a space station many years after that situation happened. But either way, that's how Earth came to be in this position. We're actually part of a much larger planet, and we came with all the organics and life already on us as we tore away from the giant Tiamat collision. Then you fast forward into the future, so that's Mars heals itself, it comes back to life again. And then you have the wars of the Atlanteans, which this Brahma weapon is released and destroys Mars, destroys a lot of. You see that gigantic cavern that goes across Mars?
Valles Marineris.
Valles Marineris? That's to me, again, this isn't textbook, this isn't an official statement. My personal opinion is that's weapons fire. Right. And that's weapons fire, my personal opinion, from a weapon that is talked about in the Mahabharata. Now, then it causes potentially another pole shift of the crust of Mars, moving it another few more degrees, because scientists now officially think that it had 2 pole shifts on Mars. Which throws the whole planet in turmoil, right. Exactly, put the whole planet, another great flood, washes over the land. This is what we see, evidence of flood everywhere, destruction everywhere. And then I think more recently, fast forward now to only just maybe a few decades ago, I think we dropped some bombs up there. I really do. I believe that's the case. I mean, when they saw those 2 nuclear explosions in 1941 in Mars's atmosphere, that tells me right off the bat, was that something, well, I actually questioned it a while ago, and I actually said this, and everybody's going, oh my God, that would be so, really evil to do this. I said, how do we know it wasn't, we seen, some life forms on that planet, and said, why don't we just go ahead and dominate the planet? In other words, they don't look like they can actually fend for themselves or protect themselves in any way, shape, or form. Why don't we just go a couple, maybe nuclear explosions, and on top of that, maybe we'll make a concoction of germs and anything else, just spray it out through the atmosphere, and then we'll just finish off the planet and then come take what we want out of it. And this is the reason why we're there today. I agree, 1,000%. To me, that's exactly what's happening. We are now the new Christopher Columbuses, if you know what I mean. Yep. And it's unfortunate because, the Mars Global Surveyor and the other atmospheric devices have detected the weapons-grade xenon in the atmosphere and in the soil. Yep. Which means weapons-grade means nuclear. Weapons-grade xenon means nuclear. And the only way it would get there, in my opinion, is if we sent it. And we're crazy enough to do that. I mean, I remember when we thought that the Van Allen radiation belt was going to be a problem. So we thought if we launch a nuke in our atmosphere, we'd blow out the radiation. Right. We added more radiation. Yep. We do dumb stuff like this. We drop a bomb on the moon. We do stupid stuff. And I think that they said, you know what? we can go ahead and claim this because they're disabled. They're just a few remnants surviving. Why don't we just go ahead and just, like you say, light this thing up,
Yep.
and we'll come back in about 50, 60 years, and we'll go ahead and settle right on in.
Well, I mean, it's like I said, and I've told my subs here, I said, listen, it's no different than Chernobyl, where you've seen that would happen there, and now you can literally go there now and not actually get contaminated, unless, of course, you're there for like days upon you, whatever. But it's gotten so, I mean, you think about the time frame from that accident to now, you can literally go walk around there. You couldn't do that then. And here's the thing, too, is in the atmosphere. So maybe the radiation, maybe it wasn't so much destruction that ruined all of the structures there and everything else, but more of the radiation in the air is enough to, like, peel your skin off your body, kill you outright. And if they decided, hey, why don't we just make the second bomb, maybe we'll make that one like I said, a germ cocktail or something like that, and kill off any indigenous life on that planet. And I've been saying that. It just seems like it wasn't that long ago. Now, if they had life like ourselves, we're in what, the fifth cycle?
Yeah.
And we'll get to that in a second. But it's like, if you think about it, you go, okay, so if they have life on that planet millions of years ago, maybe they did the same thing. Maybe they had different cycles up to recent, like we are now. And our first cycle, we probably don't even remember. There's no remnants. We are starting to see a lot of remnants, though. There's literally walls that were buried like miles below the surface, like the soil in some areas, where they literally hit a wall when they were trying to mine the area. They literally hit this brick wall, and they're going, where did this come from? This would have to be like 250,000 years ago.
Yep.
So now that they're finding this, we truly don't know how old we really are. Now it's up to like 250, 500,000 years old now. Remember before it was like, well, we might be 6,000 years old.
Yeah.
Maybe 15,000 years ago. And I'm talking about civilized man, not like Neanderthal, right? So,
right.
But now they're saying as far as intelligent man, it's going to 200 and, like insane numbers now compared to what it was, like 2.5 million years or whatever. So you go, okay, so let me see. Is that, is it possible that our first cycle, have you researched that? Now, do you think it's like that many years old? Do you think our first cycle was millions of years ago? Hundreds of years? It had to be, or thousands of years ago.
I think it was. I think our first cycle was probably millions of years ago, and I think that what happened was during the end, coming towards the end of the fourth cycle, we had already gone back into a Bronze Age. In other words, we had reached our peak and then we had fallen again, whether it be from a geological disaster, whether it be from some technology that we destroyed ourselves, whatever it is. I believe that we were in a fallen state. So our cousins that were already here, which were not Homo sapiens sapien, but were intelligent hominids, were here on the land, on Earth, when the Anunnaki arrived. They arrived, unfortunately, at this exact time we were in a Bronze Age state, in a fallen state, barbaric state again, and we were, on that back end of the Yuga cycle, trying to make our way back into this silver and golden age and everything else again. So they landed and came here at the time when we were in a fallen state, and they were able to take advantage of that. That's why sometimes I post on my social media where I say, we are the fallen angels. People don't know how to understand or to take that because they think I'm referencing something more biblical. But what I'm trying to say is we had already been incredible in terms of technology and spirituality, incredibly high-level beings, and we had fallen to a low state. And this has happened a few times. So they came at the tail end of that fourth cycle, and they took advantage, and they took over our planet, took over our solar system, and were able to manipulate us and enslave us and everything else. So I believe that's really what happened, man. They just came and dominated. They masqueraded as gods, and they dominated our realm.
That sounds about right. That's the way I'd sum it up. I mean, it's so the way I've been telling everybody is the way I see it is that we're like the new kids on the block, right? Where we're just now learning how to actually walk. We've been crawling, we're learning how to walk. Now we're seeing things like, at least in this cycle, we're seeing things back way thousands and millions of years ago. And people go, well, why don't we see that now? Why don't we see our technologies from maybe that first cycle? Well, it's going to erode. It's like, what would happen to if people disappeared today? How long do you think everything, like nature would take over, everything would rust and disintegrate, fall into rubble, nature would literally take over? You wouldn't see it in a million years, ever. No. Now, even back when you had the Egyptians, that's like, boom. They go, well, it's just stone. How can that be technology? Are you kidding me? You know the numbers that go into that? And of course, you know this. You know the numbers, the measurements. You can't slip a razor blade between these blocks. It's insane. Highly glossed blocks and extremely, they put like a 90 degree on these walls, and they're perfect. Even after how many thousands of years, this thing weighs insane amount of weight. So I mean, it has to settle at some point, and yet all these blocks and the interiors in these chambers, they're like absolutely awesome. They can literally, like I said, put a 90 degree to it. Boom, it's perfect. So how is that possible? And yet they done it, but they want you to believe they did it with like these little, brass chisels and little hammers, and that's pretty much it. Now, did it take a bunch of these people to do that? Absolutely. But it doesn't mean they didn't get their knowledge from the gods or the overseers. And
exactly.
This is what makes the difference. Anybody can be like, well, I don't know how to work on a car. Yes, but if I was ASE certified, I could show you how to do that. So you could be totally oblivious and ignorant to that, working on your own car, whatever it may be. But yet, if I show you the way, you'll master it.
Yeah.
So
that's right.
And that's the way I feel. And I think, like I said, with a new kid on the block, we now seen what was on the moon. And by the way, Tony P, thanks for showing me that. It was funny because he said, hey, can you do a video on this photo? And I was going to bring it on here, but I'm going to give you guys a teaser. I'm going to let you see it. But I said, funny enough, Tony, is that I had already put this thing into my Photoshop because it's insane. I'll show you guys real quick that, and I'm not going to show you the enhanced version because it'd be cheating. I don't want to give that away. But this photo right here is going to prove 1,000,000%. The evidence is there. It's overwhelming that there was things on this moon that does not belong there. Now, my question would be, we have to ask ourselves, all right, well, is it ours? Way back in the day in our cycles, if we were technologically advanced back in the day, is it possible it was ours? In addition to that, was it something from outside our solar system and then and way beyond? Because, like I said, and I've been telling him, Billy, that back in, it was like, I learned this just recently, it was like a year ago, maybe a year and a half ago, that there was a scientist said that back 65 million years ago when the dinosaurs roamed, is that this solar system was entirely in a different part of the universe. So I'm thinking that it's very easy to lily pad from these other solar systems, maybe these other civilizations, to jump into our solar system, live here, mine, do whatever they had to do, and then they moved on from this civilization. We are what's left of a ruined neighborhood, if you will.
Yep.
What's your take on that? Do you have anything else to add to that, or do you have a different take?
I think you're pretty much spot on. Based on my research, and I've done lectures on this topic, it's amazing that we've all been taught in school that we're in the we hail from the Milky Way galaxy, Earth and our solar system. This is where we were formed and it was coalesced, and right here is where we started. Now, guess what? All the science books have already started to be rewritten in terms of our solar system on the mainstream level because the evidence is too shocking and overwhelming. They discovered that Earth and our solar system does not hail from the Milky Way galaxy. We actually are from the Sagittarius dwarf galaxy, not the Sagittarius constellation. Don't get confused. There's a totally separate galaxy named the Sagittarius dwarf galaxy. This galaxy merged with the Milky Way galaxy, and it's still in the process of merging right now because gravitationally the Milky Way was much bigger and it sucked in the Sagittarius dwarf. And the exact intersection point where they meet is right where our sun is located in our solar system. And so now scientists have backtracked it with software and realized we were dropped in here by the Sagittarius dwarf galaxy through a merger of the two galaxies together. Right. And when you look up in the night sky and you see that swath of stars going across, they used to say, oh, that's just the Milky Way. It's actually, what you're looking at is a remnant of the Sagittarius dwarf being absorbed by the Milky Way. And it's still happening till today. And in a few million years, I think it's 5 billion years, we're going to collide with Andromeda. And so we will absorb the stars of the Andromeda galaxy. And so we're going to be called Milkomeda by then. So there's a lot going on. One thing I wanted to add too, Chris, is you were talking about finding these ancient structures 250 years, 250,000 years old, a million years old. I know that some coal miners had gone down into coal mines, and every layer you go down is so many hundreds of thousands of years, right?
Right.
They pulled up pottery that was 500 million years old.
Mm-hmm.
Things that were 300 million years old, right? And everybody's scratching their heads like, what the hell is going on here?
Yeah.
And so they can't figure it out. I think I might have the theory on this. So if the ancient tablets, the Enuma Elish and the Atra Aesop are accurate, which to me is some of the oldest texts on the planet, which means that they're closer to the truth as possible. Is there an absolute truth? I doubt it, but they're close.
Right.
And they're talking about Tiamat blowing up, piece of it becoming the earth. Is it possible that the advanced civilization that was on Tiamat before it exploded, part of that now became the earth recoalesced? When you go into these deep layers of the earth, are you not looking at some ancient remnants from 500 million years ago when we were part of Tiamat, from another civilization when we were part of another planet entirely?
Right.
It's possible.
Oh, I think it's very possible, and it sounds very plausible. I mean, if that's the case, if that's what really happened, it makes sense that deep within that part of that planet, back like you said, Tiamat, then maybe over years, over millions of years, nature had gone over, the soil went over it, and so on and so forth, and then kind of like we're seeing here on Earth, it would be Tiamat, pieces of it, and then we're finding our other civilizations that were here once Earth was actually here. We're finding ancient civilizations, whether underwater, under way up on. Well, look at the Mayans. I mean, like they're taking these satellite, basically X-raying the whole darn area, and they're finding the radar images, and they're finding some crazy things that this thing is much larger. The Mayan ruins and structures, they're huge. I mean, so this is a booming planet back then. People think, oh no, we were very, very, sparse. We didn't really have that much people. I mean, in certain areas, yes, but I mean, and then you go, wait a minute. It was that large? You're thinking, a couple pyramids, and these guys lived there, and that was the end of it. Maybe 20,000 people tops. Oh, bull. You start looking at the layout of the land. My God, there's millions of people that live there. And not only that, there's actually pyramids in almost every continent that's in the equatorial region.
Yeah.
If you look at the research, you'll find out what I'm saying, and you already know this, but to everybody who's watching this, and by the way, Tony, you said something like, it'll blow them away on that particular moon photo. Yeah, I enhanced it. And let me tell you something. I just did a few of the things, and it's like, boom, mind-blowing, because I just seen it out of the corner of my eye when you said that. But so my question is, like I said, I've always said, if I was NASA or any space agency on the planet, doesn't matter who it is, if I was to look at the moon back in the day, this is before they ever went, a nice, powerful telescope, land-based, in an area in an equatorial region, high up on a mountain where there's less, atmospheric, distortion, so on and so forth. If I seen something on that moon, okay, way back in the day, now I'm not talking about the crude ones back in 1600s, the telescope. That's garbage. The ones they have now, and you've seen something up there, you're going to want to get there and find out. First of all, one, you're going, okay, clearly we don't have the technology to go there. Two, we need to go there. And we need to find out what it is right off the bat. This is the reason why I started doing moon videos, because that's where it all started for us.
Yeah.
You see this and you go, okay, it's not ours. Whose is it? And if it was ours, like I said, maybe millions of years ago in our first cycle of life here, possibility, right? Pure speculation, because we can't prove it. But if it is, then you say to yourself, okay, so we see these things there. Oh, my God. We are part of something much larger. I've said this a million times. When you see that, you go, okay, clearly there's nobody on Earth who could build these. These things look like they're just literally ruins from like millions of years ago. And you see these spacecraft. I got photos where it looks like spacecraft just kind of like dilapidated, just laying on their side, like they've been there for God knows how long. And this other photo I'm going to show people, oh my God, wait until you see this. You see things on there, you clearly can see they're parts of spacecraft, structures, mind-blowing stuff here. Let's see. Was it? Oh, thank you, Colleen. Much appreciated for your support. As always, you said excellent hangout. I do appreciate you. I appreciate everybody here. You guys know that. I see Mr. Jean Ward's in the house. Everybody, like I said, all the normal people are in there. That's awesome. You guys are the bomb. So yeah, I mean, Let me see this. Let me go back down here. Again, Colleen, thank you very much. Anybody, yeah, we got 178 watching and 81 thumbs up. Come on, guys, hit that thumbs up. Slam that bad boy. So now, how, in your research, how long ago do you think Mars actually just stopped existing? Do you think it was recent, like 19? See, this is what I'm saying. I'm going, okay, if there was, and I mean complete death of the civilization, meaning if there's any people left on that planet, do you believe it was 1941 that they were finished off? I'm not saying the original wars or anything like that. I'm saying, when do you believe was the last?
I think it was very, very recent, probably in the 1940s. And the reason why I'm saying this is not only do we have the evidence of the nuclear warfare that happened there, the nuclear strike with the xenon, the weapons-grade xenon, but we also have something else that is more hypothetical, but still provides us with circumstantial evidence. And circumstantial evidence can put you in prison if it's enough of it, right? So,
pretty much.
Then the circumstantial evidence is this. We've now, we meaning you, me, and the other 12 people, there's 14 of us, have analyzed literally tens of thousands of photos, if not millions, and cataloged about 50 to 60,000 anomalies, I estimated through some of the groups that we're in. And a lot of these anomalies appear, not saying they have, but they appear to be made of some form of metal or metallic objects because of the reflection of sunlight that we see off of them. We can assume, not say definitely, but assume that they may be metallic by nature. So with finding so many metallic anomalies, even in a reduced oxygen atmosphere, I contacted a metallurgist, and the metallurgist analyzed the light spectrum coming from these, even though it was very rough because, you know, we have obfuscated images. And it, based on what his knowledge is of actual anomalies here on Earth, or metal pieces on Earth that are been left out in open and exposed areas, and how long they can last before turning to dust, he tells me that some of these objects, if they are made of the same types of metals that we have on Earth, they couldn't be any more than 80 years old, or they would have been dust already. So when we see things that look metallic, that appear to be incomplete, you know, the structures appear to be complete and not dilapidated or dust, or just like they're just laying on their side, well, then how old are these things? If they're metallic, that's a big question mark, but if they are, how come they haven't turned back to dust yet? How old are these things? Is it that this last remnant was very recent? They may have still been there up until the last couple of decades. And are there still a few hiding out right now? You know, it's a big question mark.
Yeah, I mean, I just want to stop real quick and thank you, Louis Longbeard. I appreciate your support. Always appreciate it. He said, hey, Chris, I'm loving this, and Billy is an awesome guest and has really great ideas. Yeah, absolutely. Like I said, I've always said he's like the aficionado, and like, I mean, I know a lot about ancient stuff, but he's the aficionado. He's like a knowledge. It's like there's no competition. But he's also been places where he can actually get all this knowledge where I have not. So what better place to go to than the source, as opposed to just guessing? So again, Louis, I appreciate your support, man. So yeah, I mean, I look at it this way. I go, look. Again, going back to the moon, if I was to look at the actual objects on the moon, and I seen one that looked like this giant cargo hold, is like picture like a like a lot of those containers, the big steel containers they put on ships, and they, you know, picture something much larger than that, but in that shape, laying on the surface of the moon. You go, wait a minute, how was that put there? Again, we have to think kind of like what Earth, if it was part of Tiamat, if that if that moon rather was brought to our orbit the way it is now, where was that moon? And what made it onto that moon? And did they just leave these there? Okay, it's just discarded it. We don't know. Get it out. No longer need it. Why? You know, just so many questions you got to ask yourself. And this is the reason why, you know, and everybody here has seen this, where they go, listen, we've seen the Apollo 11 mission astronauts. They came back for their press conference. These guys were totally out of their minds. They didn't even want to be in this conference. They were like, and just simple questions, you know, like, they'll go, so what'd you guys think about the stars? How many stars? I didn't see any stars. They weren't. These guys weren't looking at stars, man. They weren't going, wow, those are pretty. No, they weren't sent there to do that. They were sent there to, it was basically a recon mission, to go up there. Yes, they did the dust thing. They grabbed rocks. They grabbed dust. But that's not the real mission. That was a PR move for the public itself. The actual mission was to go there and bring parts of the stuff back. Now, when you see them come out with that little silver briefcase, oh, these are the stones. Well, they might have left the other briefcase and other parts on the craft, and they come out with this and just say, oh, look, rocks, just simple rocks. I don't believe that was the case at all. Judging by what I'm seeing in these photos, and there's some really raw photos, of course, a lot of them, that one I just showed you guys, my subs there, that's heavily, heavily manipulated. However, there's stuff you can bring out. You notice on one side of the photo is very light, and the other one was, meaning it was kind of like a haze over the right-hand side. The left side, they wanted you to believe, oh, wait a minute, the sun's coming up on that side, so therefore it's very bright. So you bring the darkness in the like a shadowing and darker areas back out, and you see some awesome things. You then bring the left side down, the brightness, and you find more awesome things. So you go, okay, so was this done deliberately through camera, meaning they got the better photos, they adjusted the camera just properly so they could see it perfectly, and of course they airbrushed everything out, they didn't want you to see, so on and so forth. So if you saw this, you're on the moon, these guys seen something that no man will ever see, unless of course you're digging through these photos or you know firsthand. They seen this. How do you come back from this mission and go, yeah, I just want to sit down and talk about nothing? They probably debriefed them and said, you're not to talk about any of this. Okay, then what are we there for? Because clearly, if I was on that mission, I'm just not even going to know how to act. I still can't get my mind wrapped around what I've seen on the moon. Why would I want to sit in a room full of people with cameras and try to explain something that's totally irrelevant to what we were there for?
Yeah.
So these guys were literally talking about this, saying, listen, some of them are saying it now, like, some of them have already passed on and talked about, there was, we've had UFOs coming to Earth, so on and so forth. This was near the end of their lives. So they get up there, they see these things, they take parts back, they analyze the metals. Maybe the metals are something we've never seen before. And this is the reason why they can last on the moon. Well, of course, the moon doesn't really have any atmosphere, but it does have some moisture. But like on Mars, if we assume that these people had something to do with it too, in other words, they bounced from the moon to Mars and so on and so forth in our solar system, is it possible this metal has been there thousands of years ago and millions of years ago? I don't think that's the case. I think what killed off that planet, and like you said, when it got rocked because of the catastrophic wars and everything else, pole shift, boom, get great floods. And we see pictures, and we see like remnants, stuff that looks like it's been washed about, or it's been at the bottom of a water bed or something like that, a lake bed or whatever it may be. And we're seeing some crazy things on this moon and on Mars that don't belong there. So that tells me, wait a minute, we're seeing this on the moon. We're seeing these in the Mars photos. Wow. Who are these people? How long ago? And I'm talking about the moon more than anything, but let's go with Mars as well. Wow. We are just learning how to walk, and we're just going, so we had neighbors here. Where the hell are they now? And can we analyze the stuff that's on the moon and Mars and find out just how old the stuff is, which I'm sure they already have. So, there's a lot of questions to ask, and it's like, I don't think they want to open up that can of worms, and this is the reason why they're not coming forth with this information to the public.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you hit it on the head. It's a lot of information. It could be information overload. And the main reason is not that we wouldn't eventually be able to handle it. Initially, it would be a definitely shock factor, but shortly after the shock factor, there will be an economic collapse. And not because we're going to go crazy running through the streets pulling our hair out. It's because we're going to go, okay, why are we still driving in combustion engines? Okay, why are we going to these religious centers and giving them all of our money every weekend? I think that's a fake story. Okay, and these people up on the moon were the people who were pretending to be the biblical characters. I mean, all this kind of stuff is going to start coming out. A lot of questions. The questions are going to create more questions and more questions. Just the religious system alone, in America only, in 1 year, is multiples of all the money generated in Silicon Valley by all the major top corporations. So we're talking about globally a multi-trillion-dollar organization going down the tubes like that night. And that means a lot of politicians that get their palms greased by that money for different things and sanctions and all kind of other crazy stuff won't be getting that money anymore, and other things that are getting spent in different economies because of that money we won't be getting that money anymore. That money will be redirected to other places. So that's just one to look at collapsing, the religious system collapsing. And so we would probably want to know, well, what are these technologies and how come we're not using these technologies? And also a lot of ethical questions are going to rise up. What are you guys doing up there? Is anybody alive up there? Are you guys killing these people?
Mm-hmm.
They have rights too. What about the people on Mars? Do we try to kill people on Mars? What about our bacteria? Are we infecting these people by going there and killing them off because they can't handle our germs? So a lot of ethical questions then pop up. But if you keep all that secret and you don't say nothing, now what are we going to ask? There's nothing to ask. We don't know anything. Yep. So now they can go and do all the stuff in the dark and do what they want, how they want, when they want, capitalize on anything that they discover, reverse engineer that, turn it into a money-making machine, and of course, create their much wanted breakaway civilization with their hand-picked gene pool on the planet, and we aren't invited. So it's really interesting. There's a lot of reasons why they want, and also the other reason would be is for national security or global security purposes as well, because sometimes if you know a little bit too much about what's going on, a lot of security questions become raised because people are very easily to be afraid. We're going to be under attack. Can they kill us? Are they going to poison our water system? Blah, 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 blah.
Well, I was going to mention that. I was going to say also, are we going to look at our governments like they're suddenly weak?
Exactly.
And can we overthrow them? Are they afraid of that?
Exactly.
So the last thing they want to do is open up Pandora's box and have a whole bunch of crap break out. And I've said this. We've talked about this before. I was like, listen, I don't foresee disclosure, meaning, well, by the way, let's tell the public tomorrow everything we need to know. And like I said, I made predictions where I said, listen, if they find anything on Mars, they're going to find it next year. If not by the end of this year, they're going to find it with the new rover Perseverance. Yep. They're going to find either microbial life, either it's going to be fossilized or it's going to be the real deal, meaning it's alive. But then the question has to come about, what do these microbes feed on?
Yeah.
There has to be some kind of little cycle on there. Does it end just strictly with the microbes? Is there macro life? And then what they're going to find, they're going to slowly step it up to where, they're going to find a little bit of grass or a little bit of whatever, maybe some organics growing on the planet. And they're going to slowly let it out. I don't think they'll ever let it out unless, of course, they go, okay, we have a civilization, meaning our own structures, or they're living in the structures that are already there, which I believe that's the case, because I don't think they're all wiped out. But now, if we were to go by the speculation that some of these Martians were very small, well, clearly we can't live in those structures. So we'd have to build our own. But then at some point, once we're completely on the planet, meaning we've been there for X amount of years, we're going to say, hey, by the way, because we've already conquered this, hey, guess what? We happened to we went around this rock or we were digging and we found something that looked like intelligently made. It wouldn't matter at that point because we've already conquered Mars, meaning we're living there. So by then they can let the cat out of the bag. It's no big deal. So that's what I think is the case. That's what I think is going on. And like I said, judging by just some of the stuff I've seen on there, when you really, really pay attention to these photos, a lot of people go, I just see rocks. No. Take a close look at these photos, and I mean real close. And when we go over them, we see them. And we do this a lot of times. We'll take like a gigapan, we'll rip it apart. And these guys will be like, oh my God, look at that. Because you can see it if you slowly go over it. You can see things sticking out of these rocks. You can see things that look like they've been dressed up, like they've been rockified, as Jimmy puts it, my good friend Jimmy puts it. It's been rockified because they're using a rock mimicking software to change this. Now, let's suppose it's been weathered like that. There's an actual water cycle in Gale Crater. This is not even a secret anymore. It hasn't been a secret. I've said it long before they even talked about water on the poles. I said, no, there is actually H2O and not just carbon ice there. There's also, and then they come out with it like a year or two later, they came out and said, oh, by the way, there's water ice there as well. Imagine that. So, and like I said, one of the scientists who works on the actual drill, he come right out and said, we were worried about it getting caught in the moisture getting caught into the drill bit because it literally brings it up in this clear tube, and then it brings into the spectrum analyzer, and then it analyzes the soil. Well, sometimes it can get jammed. He goes, it can get jammed? Really? The guy that was actually interviewing him, and he said, yeah. He said, we found out there is an actual water cycle in Gale Crater. And I've been saying that for I don't know how long, because I said, well, you just research, and you say, okay, if you look at the Hubble photos of Mars, It's just like our poles. They come and they go seasonally. Okay. They claim due to the pressure on Mars, this is the reason why the carbon ice returns. Okay, I believe that. Pressure can do that. And I'm okay with that. But then you go, wait a minute. But it grows just like here on Earth. It's not so much pressure. It's just the way it literally, it just comes back. So after I'm looking at it and they're saying there's water in the soil. Now, don't get me wrong. It's brine, meaning highly salted water. Okay, I get that. But you got heat. It can be 70 to 100 degrees in the equatorial region during the summer months on Mars. Okay, so let's make these deductions. We get these cirrus clouds. We get these weather-changing clouds. Yeah. We get water in the soil. It evaporates, goes up in the sky, creates a vapor. It gets too heavy. It turns into a cloud and starts to dump water. There's your water cycle. It's not very complicated. So they're finding this out more and more. Wow, more and more. And then we just did another, went back to the InSight mission, where when they first got the first photo in, first of all, the spacecraft signaled that it was okay. It landed. It's correct. It's where it's supposed to be. Okay. The first photo that comes on, it's a blue sky. 10 seconds later, even the people in the actual command center, call it if you will, or control center, they're going, "Wow, look, the sky's blue." These are the people that work there. Wow, the sky's blue. They're totally blown away. So it wasn't 10 seconds later. It changed to all orange again. Imagine that. So we have blue skies. So that's a crock right there. We have a water cycle. We have this. We have that. I believe there's flying insects. I've even seen photos what looks like insects in the air in front of the camera where you see a motion blur behind it. And, of course, people will say, well, no, it's just dust. Okay, so let's suppose it's a micron of dust flying in front of the camera. That's the only piece of dust flying around?
Right.
I mean, you have to try to use a little logic on these things and say, if it was windy, you would see a whole ton of these things in front of that camera. We'd have to. That's the only micron flying around. Come on. So when you start to do the deductions and start, researching them more and more, you just go, man, Mars is not what they claim that it is. And I believe it still has at least organics on it. I think it still has insects on it. I still think it has flying and crawling things around on it. What is your thoughts on that? Do you think possibly no, or do you think it's, what I'm saying, or?
Man, listen, I think you're spot on. Just based on the research that I've done and the images that I've personally analyzed and anomalies that I've posted in the last, 7 years, I found things that look like macro life, not micro. I found things that to me appear to be small mammals. And again, I'm just speculating, I'm not there, but they look like small mammals, look like small insects. And I see them everywhere. I see things that appear to be like algae or moss. And it's everywhere, man. It's not like it's just one little area or just, it's like in so many different places. It's, again, circumstantial evidence could put you in prison. I mean, so you start adding these up, over tens of thousands of images, and all of a sudden we're saying, wait a minute, there's something going on here, and it looks like macro life, not micro life. And I think you're right. They definitely know about it. There's no way that billionaires are going to spend $500,000 to $1 million to go on a one-way trip to Mars, which is happening, and stay there for the rest of their life, to leave the creature comforts of Earth and their butlers and their maids and their nanny services and their car wash people and all these trips that they take to go live in a tin can and inside of a tin suit until they die. I'm sorry, it's not going to happen. I think that they're moving into an established infrastructure that is going to be maybe not as luxurious as living on the Palm Beach, Florida coastline.
They'll drive,
at the same time, right? But if you were an adventurer like I am, I'd go in a heartbeat.
Oh yeah.
But I don't think they're living in a tin can. I think that they'll come and wave at the camera in their suit, and they'll have the tin can behind them, and then they'll go behind the butte, and they'll go into a nice shelter that's already got an established infrastructure and some of the best technology that we've ever seen. A lot of technology that's been suppressed on Earth will be found up there on Mars because they'll definitely need it. And I think that a lot of these X-33 military shuttles that have been taken off for the last 5 years, going away for 1 year at a time, some 2 years at a time, I think that they're taking cargo to Mars and back. That's just my personal opinion. So I think that there's life there. They know all about it. I have been saying before in many videos that by 2025, they will announce bacteria on Mars at least. And I think that, like you say, it's a buildup to once we're fully established, then they go, oh guys, oh by the way, this is 10 years after we've been there already as a civilization. Oh yeah, we found this remnant of an ancient civilization here. But by then it's like, oh well, whatever,
Yeah, because we're already on the planet, so we're going, yeah, it's not a big deal. If they were to say that now, oh wow, who are they? But now, because you're already situated, you've already been on the planet, it's like old hats. You go, yeah, we found some garbage laying around. We might have been another civilization. People won't think nothing of it because we've already established a base on Mars, and it won't seem like a big deal at the time. And by then, they've slowly conditioned people. Yes, there's organics, there's this, there's that, the other. Oh, yeah. Now we're finding it more and more. Or the planet seems to be waking up. Remember that about the volcano that started to erupt? We never heard another bloody word about it.
Yeah.
Imagine that. I want to give a shout out to Mags K. Thank you very much for your support. Always appreciate it. Thank you. It's just, I don't know. To me, it just seems like, and I wish they would just come out with the disclosure, but they're not going to, right? At least not, like I said, not like this quick. And I've got high hopes for the new helicopter that's going up there. Although they might crash it into a butte and say, oops. But they've already had it in a test, basically a test center here on Earth, and they simulated the actual atmosphere on Mars. And of course, they had the propellers going about 32 to 3,500 RPMs, so they had lift. It worked well. Now we're going to see what happens with that thing. I'm just kind of curious what's going to happen with that thing. If it's literally going to just crash, oh wait a minute, it can't be charged anymore, or whatever the case is. It's some BS. I'm hoping I'm completely wrong on this. But I've always said this. They said the way here's the thing. We'll step back. Where they're talking about why we'd like to get it up there. We want to see if we can get something that can fly in Mars' atmosphere. Okay, I get that. 2, we want to help the actual Perseverance actually navigate. Wait a minute. The Curiosity rover right now in 2012 when it went up there, it's got its own autonomous drive. Why do we need a helicopter to do this? We don't. What we need, as NASA would think, we need this thing to fly up and around the objects that we're looking at, maybe perhaps fly into, come back out. I think it's 7 to 11 minutes of flight. It will then land, it'll charge, boom, it's back up in the air again, and then it's doing its thing. So wherever the rover can't get up and around, the helicopter will do. If it's next to a structure, of course, speculation because we don't know that for sure, but judging on what we've seen in these photos, I believe that's the case. Now, you go, okay, so wouldn't it make sense to have something that can fly into something? It's autonomous as well. They can sit there and fly around these things, take a 3D image, blah, 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 blah. It makes perfect sense. So even if it does, crash and burn, so to speak, they know, okay, this is the mistake we made because I'm sure it's going to have to do its own, test before it lifts. It's going to, hit the props. Okay, it's working. Okay, we're good. It'll signal back to Earth. It's working fine. It'll then take off. Okay, it's doing that, taking its first flight, so on and so forth. So finally it goes, here's the first photos of it. So I think what will happen, I can't wait to see if they show literally over the actual rover. And of course they'll move the rover till there's nothing around the rover that can be seen, but they'll take a picture. Look how perfect that is. Well, wait a minute. According to NASA, the camera on the MRO can take a photo of something that's a 4-foot swath on the ground. Yeah. In fact, who was the lead scientist there? I can't remember his name off the top, but he said, and he literally says, I got a video, and I said, this is the reason why, I think it's called, this is the reason why I believe NASA's lying. He literally says, this table, we can see this table from space. And they're at a table not more than 4 feet wide. We could see this table from space. Wait a minute. Why hasn't the public seen this? So it tells me that they're hiding it from the public. They can literally look down at the ground, stare at this thing wherever they want to. No, give it a command to go over there, and then it'll autonomously take over. It'll be able to avoid, go up and over things and everything else, and then it takes its photos and looks around. But wait a minute, now we got the copter to go up and around these objects. I mean, come on. I mean, I guess they think everybody's a numbskull and that nobody will be able to figure this out at some point. But the more and more people are being awakened to this, then it's a bigger consciousness, right? So, and that's what I think it's all about. So I love the idea that they're going, but I'm going, I'm hopeful, but I don't think that's the case. What do you think? You think they just, well, you've already said it. You said that you don't think they're just going to come out and say it. I think it'll be years before they come out with anything as far as civilization-wise. Now, well, I think we got to just literally pick through those to find it, right? But as far
Yeah.
as plant life, I think next year. Next year, or the
Yeah.
year before, as far as they'll find the macro and micro, but as far as like anything, maybe like organics, maybe they'll let that slide in 2022.
Yeah. Yeah. I think you're pretty close. I think it's they're gonna hear the bacteria first, then we're gonna hear some kind of bush, some kind of small shrub or something. I think that the copter thing is more for them than us.
Mm-hmm.
They're just trying to survey different areas, pick different sites for different communities that they're going to build.
Mm-hmm.
Analyze animal life in different areas, analyze structures, analyze structural integrity of structures that may still be standing, to see if how are they reusable, or do they need to scrap that and do one from scratch. All these things, are there resources in the area that can be used? Because I'm sure there's a whole bank of other types of scanners, some we may not even be privy to knowing about.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's a multi-purpose function for having the copter, drone, or whatever it's called, to do this stuff. And it's more for them than us. We'll get a few pictures here and there, but the majority of the quality video and sound and HD photos or high resolution photos will go to them. Because they're really trying to survey the areas up there to prepare everything for their breakaway civilization. And I think that, unfortunately, I just really think that there are a couple of survivors up there that may have already been eradicated or are being eradicated in some way, shape, or form. But just like we do any indigenous culture here on Earth and on any continent on this planet, you force your way in and then you take over their land and their resources. Nobody on Earth is poor. There's no poor continent on this planet. Every continent is rich.
Yep.
And so what happens is the elite powers go in and they dominate that continent or that region, and they take the resources of the wealth, which is the wealth, and the indigenous people that are there are marked as poor, although they've just been robbed.
Exactly. They're poor because they got robbed, right?
They got jacked. So I think that's what's happening, on Mars. That's my opinion.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. James, appreciate your support, man. You said, hi, Chris and Billy and everyone. I am here a little late, but it's great to be here now. It's fantastic to have Billy on board with you, Chris, top of the range. Again, James, thank you very much, as always. And guys, if you haven't slammed that thumbs up, please do so. And like I said, I've always liked that. The fact that we're seeing these things in these photos, to me, is mind-blowing. Now, you can say, well, you look at something, maybe that's not it, because we can only speculate, right? I've always said that, listen, you can't go up there, you can't smell it, touch it, see it, at least you literally can't go there yourself and do it. We could see it through photos that have been heavily manipulated and, censored in one form or another. So, yeah. Now, Dave Havery just said, the Black Knight satellite, please.
Yeah.
Now, what do we got going on with that?
Oh, man. Whew. This is going to be an amazing documentary. I'm putting my blood, sweat, and tears into this documentary. The story of the Black Knight satellite has been told on a lot of YouTube videos, and it's the same cut and paste, story. Everybody's literally reading a script. A lot of the information that was on the first forum post that I made from 6 or 7 years ago, which is still online, and when I gathered a lot of information, and people have taken that and made it sound a little bit nicer, but it's the same exact thing. They almost go right down the line for what I put out there. And so there's been hundreds of videos about it, all saying the same cut and paste news story. No real in-depth look into this anomaly in terms of what it is, what it could be made of, where it came from, and is it linked to anything in our previous civilizations or ancient past? And if it's not, the civilization that created or left this thing behind, where do they hail from? So we're asking a lot of big questions in this documentary. It's a documentary of question marks. We're literally proposing huge questions, and then I turn to experts for potential answers. For example, looking at this anomaly and analyzing some of the information about it, I turn to you, Chris Maroney, in terms of, let's see what an expert in image analysis can do with this thing, and enhancements can do taking a look at this thing. What can we see that they're not showing us? and you did a phenomenal job. I can't wait till the people see, what you did with this and how it looks. You didn't really do much.
No,
You
not at
just
all.
literally took a little bit of the haze away to let us see what's really there, and magnified it a little bit so we can actually make out and see. And then also we're going to have a lot of analysis from you on the debunking of the space blanket theory.
Mm-hmm.
And then I've got astrophysicists and theoretical physicists that are hypothesizing on the location of the potential civilization that may have left this thing behind. And then I have experts in ancient texts and cuneiform tablets and papyruses and scriptures that are going to tie this thing potentially to the ancient past, and knowing that it was already up there and that it's been written about and we've just been overlooking it. So it's going to be an amazing documentary. I'm almost done with my interviews. It's been in editing now for quite some time with the ones that I have gotten, the interviews I have taken down. The only thing that slowed us down was COVID-19. Otherwise, it would have been released probably this September.
Mm-hmm.
That put us all behind with traveling. Everything got canceled, obviously. But everything's picking back up. And as you know, Chris, I've been on the road nonstop. I flew out there to see you in West Virginia.
Mm-hmm.
I went to North Carolina. I went to Kentucky. I went to LA. I just flew back to the house. And I'm going to fly back to LA now to interview Nassim Haramein, the quantum physicist.
Yep.
And also Robert Grant, the mathematician and astronomer. And then also going to fly to New York to interview Richard Merritt. And that'll wrap up. I also did Jimmy Church just again over there in California.
Yep.
So, and that'll pretty much wrap up the cast. I've already got Alex Teplish. I've got an ABC news anchor talking about anomalies being caught live on news camera. I've got, oh man, this is just an amazing, I've got Matt LaCroix, the author. Just so many great people, authors, researchers, and scientists, real scientists in this documentary. And it's going to be on Forbidden Knowledge TV with the number 4, Forbidden Knowledge TV. And it's going to blow you away. When you see this documentary, you're going to realize we are part, like Chris always says, we are part of something so much bigger. The ancient history that we have is so much more amazing and fantastic than what we're living right now. This is really a mundane existence.
It really is. It really is. When you think about your everyday life, now I'm sure a lot of the people went through this where they go, my subs can vouch for this. They go, before I, maybe themselves, they decided, hey, you know what? I'm just doing my regular humdrum life. In other words, I go to work, I come home, I eat dinner, maybe watch a couple sitcoms or a movie or whatever. And then what I'll do is I'll go to sleep and I'll repeat the next day. Well, then when they discovered this stuff, it caught their mind. Not so much imagination, but it caught their mind, and they're saying to themselves, wow, there's more to it than just this, just us. And when we looked at this, and when I first did this, when I first looked at that Black Knight, I know this was an accident. They caught, of course they had the Black Knight, the Black Knight, the actual thermal blanket, right? And this blanket's not very big. But anyway, they find this thing, they take pictures of it because it did in fact float away from the astronaut. That's a fact. That's not BS. There's no doubt about it. That's actually fact and true. What's not true is that a couple of the photos, they're trying to say that it is the blanket when clearly it is not. And when you just do simple enhancing to this thing, my God, there's no way this thing's a flat blanket. I want you guys to visualize a flat blanket, what I always call it like the 10-gallon hat, because it actually comes up in the center of this blanket and comes down. It's to cover a trunnion pin. The trunnion pin is what's on all of these sections of the ISS. These trunnion pins were made to be put on the sides of each of these sections. So when they brought them up with the space shuttles, these trunnion pins locked into actual bracketing so it would not move about the actual cargo bay. That's what those were there for. Well, this blanket sat on top of it and covered an area of that. Now, if you visualize, from an astronaut's neck down to his feet, these things weren't more than 4 or 5 feet in width. Suddenly, you see this thing way out in space. It's not flat. It doesn't have just a piece. Now, you can see photos, and I think this will be in the video where we show like different photos where clearly it is the blanket. That's not a lie. But then when you see this other piece out there, I think they caught it by accident and they're playing it off.
Yeah.
That's what I think's going on. I really do believe that. And after I seen that, I went, oh, my God, that is so not a blanket. There's no way that's a blanket. Just the details in this thing alone scream intelligently made. And I said this. I said, why, if we're doing it to Mars right now, we have orbiters because maybe we want to see what's going on that planet. We want to, maybe just take X-rays or take photos of the Martian surface, so on and so forth. We've done it too with the lunar orbiter. We've looked at our moon and done the same thing. Why? Because we've probably seen something from a base telescope, seen that, sent up the orbiter, took a ton of photos. We're still doing it today. The LROC is still around the moon. Okay.
Yeah.
So we're doing this. So why is it far-fetched for another civilization not do that to Earth? That's what people don't understand. I believe that's absolutely true. And, they have like different ages on this thing as far as how many years it's been on there. But yeah, the documentary's got to be awesome. I think it's going to be well put together. Now, I think you were going to have Ken in there too, weren't you? Or is that even?
Oh, yeah, Ken Johnson. Yeah, Ken Johnson, the
Ken
former
Johnson
astronaut.
Sr. is going to be in there. And
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. We also have a former NASA image analyst, Keith Laney, will be in the documentary as well. Trying to get as many credible sources as possible.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I've always said this, and like when the videos I make, listen, this is the reason why I do these videos. I'll give you the link. Go ahead and look at it, and grab the thing for yourself. Grab the photo, take a look at it, come to your own conclusion, make up your own mind. So even if you don't believe what the commentary is saying, do you believe your own eyes? Because there it is. I mean, it's right there in your face, and you go, blanket, not blanket. I mean, it's very simple, So when you analyze and study these things enough, 1,000% this is no blanket. So yeah, that's gonna be awesome. So yeah, it was cool. I think it was 2 weekends ago you were up here. In fact, that's a photo we had taken. We were in the hotel room taking these things and doing this, and it was funny because when you look at me and it's like, why does Chris look so short? No, it's because Billy's so tall. He's 6'4". So yeah, it's like it's like, oh, okay. We thought you were like 4 or 5, Chris. It's like, no, that's not the case at all. I promise you. So
I tried to bend down a little bit to get you in.
I appreciate that.
Too short.
You go, hold on, let me get on my knees so I can be just as tall as you, Chris. Oh, that's just sad. But yeah, it was awesome. And there's another thing too. I noticed you guys have seen Alien Hunter's back on the air, which is awesome. He's making videos, so I'm glad to see him. I don't know if he's jumped in there. He's been on there, I think, for the last week or two, week and a half. He's been posting videos, so that's awesome that Alien Hunter's back. I know he had his bout, he had a stroke and everything else. So I'm glad that he's back doing his thing. It just makes me feel good. Know that it's another researcher, even if he's not totally researcher, but he's bringing things that he sees in these photos. So he is a researcher regardless, right? And then he's bringing them in there and he's bringing them on, showing the people and saying, here's a little bit of music in the background. Guys, analyze the photo for yourself. And it's just everybody that's helping is definitely a plus, right? So that's cool. Renee Vaughn says, thumbs up, folks. Do it to it. 187 watching. That's not too bad. Not too shabby. So, yeah, I mean, all right. So we're going to do a quick Q&A. Anybody wants to ask any questions? And we'll go ahead and do that. And then we're going to we'll jump off soon because I know Billy is he's busy, and I totally understand. That's why I'm grateful he's on with me. So anybody's got a question about it, maybe just a comment, go ahead and throw it in there. And we'll just go from there. How long would our I'll get it out. How long would our satellites stay in orbit if we destroyed ourselves?
That's a good question. So satellites, a lot of them have their own geosynchronous navigation system. They're able to sustain their own orbit. Now, from time to time, satellites will need an adjustment, which can be sent, a software program, a packet of data can be sent up into space to the satellite to make adjustments based off of orbits and the sun and the solar panels that recharge it, the battery, recharge the batteries on the satellite and everything else. And over time, just because man-made objects aren't made to last for eternity, they will eventually break down. We would normally go up there and capture some, and some we would just set to an automatic degrading orbit that we know will crash into maybe an ocean or area that we can go and then and grab it and pick it up. So it's a good question, but the question is kind of random because different satellites would become inactive at different times. So over the course of hundreds of years, we'd have satellites crashing back into Earth's atmosphere, some burning up and some actually making it through to the surface. It just, it just depends on the size of the satellite, the angle of entry, and things like that. And also, it just depends on how well it was put together. Also, even the age of the electronics in the satellite too.
Yeah, in addition to that too, you've got an orbit, and as long as the planet's not destroyed, right? But like you're saying, Billy, when they do start to degrade in their orbit, they get readjusted. So, and most of these are nuclear powered. And you can look this up. They're nuclear powered. So they give a command. They just hit it a couple times. Y'all roll, do whatever they got to do, get this thing back into orbit, and it's back into orbit. Well, if it doesn't get this signal to say, here, correct yourself, because they're monitoring these satellites all the time. They don't get that. Eventually, we'll just fall into orbit and fall into the atmosphere, and that's the end of that. Now, if we totally obliterate the planet, well, they won't be around anyway to talk about. So, but Archetype Matt, thank you very much for your support, man. I do appreciate you. You said, hey, Chris, awesome show tonight. Best of 2020.
Hey.
Yeah, well, there you go, right? But yeah, we're still doing the Q&A. So anybody got any questions or comments, just light it up. Like Mike Hoover, thank you very much for your support as well. He said, Billy, where the watchers from the Bible, the Anunnaki? P.S. I love your book.
Oh, thank you a lot, Mike Hoover. I appreciate you, man. Yes, the watchers from the Bible are the Anunnaki. In the Bible, they're called the Anak. And it says in the Bible that they were so large that the humans were like grasshoppers in their sight. That's in the Bible. So the Anak is obviously a shorter version of the Anunnaki. It's well known that they existed. The Watchers, these beings that came here and masqueraded as gods, they had different ranks and different levels. So some were generals, so to speak, admirals, and then you had the ones that were like guards of the planet. And some of this is actually going to come out in the Black Knight Satellite documentary, because we're going to establish the fact that Enlil, who's also known as Yahweh in the Bible, in the Old Testament, Yahweh is Enlil from the ancient Sumerian tablets, who was an Anunnaki. He had an all-seeing eye. He could see anything going on the planet at all four corners at any time. And the reason why he had this is because he had a crystal tablet, and I believe that tablet was linked to the Black Knight because the Black Knight was in a polar orbit. So the Black Knight orbits the planet this way, and as it spins on its axis, it's grabbing a swath of imagery and stitching it together so that you can see what's going on all around the planet. You can't do that from an equatorial orbit. You have to be in a polar orbit, something we couldn't do until recently.
And it's the same thing we're doing right now. We've been doing with the LROC, as well as the other orbiters around Mars. Yeah.
That's right.
Same thing.
Exactly. Yeah, man. So we copied their technology.
And at one time they said that this thing actually made its way and followed its way with the Apollo missions over to the moon. This Black Knight.
It followed, and it also, not only did it follow Apollo, it also followed Sputnik.
Yep. I heard that too. Now, I don't know if there was any proof to that, but yeah, definitely that's what they say.
That's incredible. It's going to come out in the Black Knight. People are going to be shocked when they hear about this stuff.
Let me see. Get the right one here to help. I've got two computers here. I can tell you, it's a question. Do you suspect the X-39B was used to covertly retrieve the Black Knight satellite?
That's a good question. Now, the X-39, because I had kind of hypothesized, are they going to try to get to this thing? But so far, even that craft that you just mentioned there, the X-39, it's not big enough to pull the Black Knight into its cargo bay, I don't believe. We're talking about something that they're estimating at around 15 tons. And I don't think that can fit inside that craft. I think we would need something much bigger. And the second part to that answer is, if you remember the Phobos 1 and 2 missions that Russia sent off, well, Phobos 1 teetered out into space somewhere, but Phobos 2, as it approached the Phobos moon of Mars, encountered something that defended itself in some kind of weird way and knocked that thing, shut it down and knocked it out of orbit. And left this image, the last image sent looked like a gigantic disc or a spaceship.
Look almost like a cigar shaped type thing.
Yeah.
And their last photo, and that's when it went dark. That satellite went dark, yeah.
So I'm thinking, in their mind, why would we want to mess with this thing and it's right over the Earth? We don't know what kind of security features, what type of defense system is built into it. I almost would not want to touch it. And if I blow it up, will that cause an alert that gets sent out to send people here to find out. You know what I'm saying? I wouldn't even touch it if I was them.
No, because it's something they know nothing really about. Even if they could scan the thing, take an
Yeah.
X-ray of it or whatever,
Mhm.
they don't know if this thing's going to just say, okay, and it's just going to go on its own defense.
Yeah.
And how do we know it just won't annihilate the planet? I mean, it's
We
pure
don't.
speculation. It may not do anything. But the
Right.
thing is, why take that chance when you go, wait a minute, this has been here before Sputnik. This has been here
Right.
before anything we ever put out in space. So should we mess with this thing? Is it like a Trojan horse kind of thing?
Right.
So
Exactly.
a couple other questions. You got Pete says, your thoughts on Enoch?
Enoch.
I
Wow.
think it's a great question. Yeah, that's a good
Great
one.
question. I've got a lot of different books of Enoch actually. There's several books on Enoch that I've been researching and studying for a long time. The thing that I love about the book of Enoch is he's mentioned in the modern day canonized Bible, the main biblical text that everybody goes to church for and reads and everything else. And so he's mentioned at a high level, but his book isn't in the Bible. You can only find it, a full Bible with the book of Enoch in it, in the Ethiopian version of the Bible, which goes back, thousands of years. So now the book of Enoch itself, when you read it, you discover, when you read it from the mind of understanding technology and limited knowledge of words being used back then, these beings came here from space to Earth, interacted with mankind, began to teach us how to make weapons, taught us about makeup and cosmetics, believe it or not, how to make war, all these kind of things. And then they even gave Enoch an appointed time to take him into space, which he did. It wasn't like he was abducted. The Bible tries to make it sound like God came and just swept him away because he was such a good servant and he never had to die. He just transcended death and went straight to heaven. That's actually not true.
No, he actually talks about how you look down onto from the firmament.
That's right.
So like he was in a craft looking down.
Looked down and saw the planet.
Yep.
So from the top side, it was amazing. It's an amazing story, and the reason why they kept it out of the Bible is just for that fact that he's talking about aliens and space travel.
Yeah, and he's talking about how they got a wheel and all that other good stuff, and yeah, I mean he was taught arithmetic, all the stuff. He knew the people by heart, knew their names and everything. He learned all their names. I mean, just awesome stuff.
Awesome.
Mimi Rack says, Mr. Carson, do you think that the Vinca culture was visited by aliens?
Which culture?
Vinca. I'm not sure. I don't know if she meant the Incan.
The Incan. Oh yeah.
Are you talking about Incan or Vinca? Because you got Vinca here. Well, Vinca. I'm not sure how she's putting that. I don't know if you can see that, but it's Vinca, but it's got the little kind of goofy little sign above the C. It's almost in the bottom there.
Okay, I'm looking now. For some reason I don't see it. It must be the Incan civilization. Now I've been to the Incan Trail. It's amazing when you go down there. You have to have these Sherpas, right?
Mm-hmm.
On the hike, because it's like a 3-day hike through the jungles down there in Peru. And so these Sherpas, they carry the tent, the tables, the food, the supplies, the tools, and all the other equipment that you need. And they run. They run ahead of you down the Incan Trail. Yeah. And after you get done walking for about 5 hours, you stop. And when you stop, you're stopping at a pop-up little city that they created for you with all the stuff that they was running. They ran, set up, cooked everything. You arrive, you eat, you nap. They break it all down and they run ahead of you again. Man. And this goes on for 3 days. Talking about being in shape. Bro, this was the craziest thing I've ever seen. But when you go there, you discover these massive megalithic structures. The guide that I had was a phenomenal homegrown guide. And he told me, and I have it on video, I think on my Facebook page, behind some of these megalithic stones on the Incan Trail, there's still gold. And the gold was in honor of the Anunnaki. Because obviously, and so far, it seems like gold is one of the top resources that they were looking for, although they got other resources. But gold was one of the top things. And if you look at Adam's calendar in Africa, one of the first gold mines, it makes sense. 200,000-year-old gold mine. Make humans think gold has this value so they can keep working it for us, and we'll give them a couple of pieces of it. We'll take the majority of it out of the planet for ourselves. For technological uses and everything else.
Mm-hmm.
But it's really amazing that I do believe that the same beings that engaged the people in the land of Chem and in Sumeria and the Arabia are the same exact people that engaged these beings down here in South and Central America. I really do believe it's the same Anunnaki people that came there, and I believe that they are space people. And ironically, we look like them. The preconceived mindset, because of TV programming, always wants to tell us when we hear the word alien that it's a little green man with antennas.
Yeah.
In reality, from what I've seen so far, hominid types are alien. We are aliens.
Yeah.
That's just what I feel like. We were planted here in some shape or form as a different ancestor. In other words, not Homo sapiens sapien, but maybe a different type of hominid before we got genetically mutated by the Anunnaki. And according to the Aboriginal elders and everybody else that I've talked to, human beings were seeded on this planet.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Now, they were saying, Mimi was saying, is Venka. Venka is Serbian.
Serbians. Okay, so in Serbia, you have, you got a lot of stuff going on over there. Wow. When you look into some of the Sumerian tablets, you discover that in that region, they began doing some additional genetic modifications, especially out of the Caucasus Mountains, which then those people populated the surrounding areas. And that's where you get Caucasians.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the difference between races isn't because of what you've been taught in school. Because I'm black because my ancestors went into the sun all day, and that's how we got black. And, these crazy. I couldn't believe they were telling me. I was laughing in class when they were saying this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But now geneticists have discovered that there's a 2% variance between races.
Mm-hmm.
And this is important because when you look into the tablets and you discover that there was a genetic modification done to human beings around 200,000 years ago at the time of Babel, because we were living long and we were coming together in peace and unity and working towards a common goal. Enlil, also known as Yahweh, decided to modify our DNA, shorten our lifespan by putting telomere caps on chromosome number 2, spreading us around the planet, and then I believe that they put genetic markers on everybody. So because at that point everybody was one race, but when he spread us out around the planet, they then did a genetic marker. So, okay, you're from this region, European, we're going to be Caucasian. You're from this region, my ruler over there is going to mark you. It's like a brand of a cow.
Mm-hmm.
You are African or black. You're over here in this region of the North Americas, we're going to brand you. Your DNA is going to make your skin red. You're an indigenous Indian. Mm-hmm. So forth and so on. You're in this region, you're going to become a yellow. You're going to be, my guy's going to rule over you over here. So everybody will know, this guy, my cousin is your ruler, and you're his people because your skin color is yellow. You're Asian. So this is how we got the races, in my personal opinion. It has nothing to do with some kind of, I was in the sun and you were in the mountains, and that's why we're two different colors. It's total genetic modifications is why we're different colors, and it happened after the Tower of Babel incident.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I believe that too. I always thought too, another way to look at that too is perhaps there was other civilizations that maybe were of different color, whites,
That's
blacks,
true.
and different Asians and stuff. Because they say, because I always thought that was funny. They go, well, we all came from Africa, right? And then what we did is we all spread out, and because we needed more sun, when you went north, you got, you were white, so you can absorb more sun. But what about, all right, so what about people of Asian? What happened?
Right.
Did the sun change their eyes? I mean, so my thing was that it's like maybe civilizations came and planted their own people on, or modified, like you're saying, onto this planet, and maybe we're a giant ant farm where they're actually looking at us all and just keeping an eye on us to see how we evolve together. If we do or we don't, will we kill ourselves off? Will we just a giant experiment to see if we can actually coexist together without killing each other, or who knows, for whatever reason. I think that's the biggest question out there that they're trying to understand. Maybe that's kind of like Prometheus. They kept wanting to go back to our maker's planet because they want to see, basically, all right, do you have makers? You made us, you modified us, or you made us, because remember in the very beginning, he takes this bowl of genetics makeup stew or whatever it is and gobbles it down and tears his body up. He falls into the river or the waterfall, and life starts on the planet. So, but then they go, wait a minute, if these are our gods, they genetically engineered us and put us here, who are their gods?
Right.
So on and so forth. So, it makes sense to me that, that it could easily be done that maybe different civilizations came and they put their own markers or they just modified their own people and put them on the planet. It makes more sense to me just saying, yeah, we're all African and we all decided to split up one day. Oh, all right, but what about, when they say like, Jesus, what is it? How they're talking about, like you just said earlier, the indigenous Indians here in North America, when you had Christopher Columbus, which wasn't the first one here, it was the Vikings. So now, okay, but they were already here. So doesn't that blow their theory away that we made our way and finally, this is the new land, even if it was Christopher Columbus? Hey, this is the new land. Wait a minute. Why is there people here?
Right.
Oh, because you're not the first one on this darn land. That's the problem. So these people were here. Of course, they talk, how it was all one, massive land, and this is how they walked, and they had these, like geo bridges and kind of stuff like that. But I think it's something that they feel is, like, they believe it's the truth. That's their best theory. But that doesn't mean it's the only thing, and that doesn't mean it's a complete answer either, right?
That's right.
So, what do you call it? Commented. He just commented, said, Phil Cox and daughters Jessica and Kelsey Brown said the Black Knight could have been left to defend Earth. That's a good comment there. Maybe the Black Knight was put here for that, and we don't know it yet. Let me see.
It's possible. I'll tell you, there's a line inside of the Emerald Tablets of Thoth where he says that deep in the future, an enemy, or he says far in the future, an enemy will come from deep space. Then he goes on to say that if anybody, the smart person that can raise my craft from underneath the Sphinx will defeat them with ease. It could be a device for potential defense, and that's actually one of the theories that we bring up in the Black Knight Satellite documentary. We ask a lot of questions in this documentary.
Yeah, because I think people should start using their head. I mean, it's kind of like when I do my videos, it's not to cram it down their throat. I do it because I want them to. It's thought provoking. I want you to look at it yourself. And again, it's kind of like yourself. And I've said this. Billy and I have talked when we were in there. We like all kinds of thoughts and stuff coming out of our heads. That's what happens when you get a bunch of people together. You guys know that. Because even my subs will be like, oh, look at this. And it's like you learn something new every day. And if you don't, you stop growing, right? To me, it just seems like when we were throwing these theories around and stuff like that and these ideas, it just makes sense that, like you're saying, this thing could have been, it's underneath the Sphinx, or maybe it was there and come out. And that's what we're seeing today, where we're seeing the Black Knight. I don't know. Or maybe it controls it at one time. Now, remember that picture I showed you? What'd you think about that? Because I gave Billy, while we were there, I gave him a photo of the Egyptian Sphinx. This is long before it was unburied. In other words, you didn't see its paws. You didn't see any of that. It was all you could see was the very top of its back and its head. And the face was weird. What did you even think of it? What's the first thing that popped in your mind when you seen that?
Man, listen, I was like, whoa. Because, it's very rare that I see something that I haven't seen yet, or somebody teaches me something that I don't know yet. It's not that I know everything.
Right.
But
nobody knows everything.
So much information, and when you show me something that's why I like talking to people like you, and because I get a chance to experience new things instead of always, just regurgitating a lot of information. I get to learn some things too, which is great. And when you showed that to me, man, I was like, whoa, because in one of the tablets I was studying, it was talking about the fact that Thoth was commissioned to build the Sphinx and to put his face on there. And then much later, I found out from other tablets further down that his jealous brother, Marduk, decided to erase his brother's face and put his son's face. So that would be Thoth's nephew.
Right.
Which would explain how the face doesn't fit to the body size. The original face was carved away, and then another man's face was put on there.
Right.
I don't think it was ever a lion's head. I think it was always a man's face, but the man's face that was on the one you showed me, the original one, didn't look like Homo sapien sapien. It looked a little bit more alienish. You know what I mean?
And when I first saw that might have been, and I'm not sure, but it might have been one of my subs, Sarah, that gave it to me. I'm not entirely sure, but when I first saw this photo, I was like, I said, oh, wow, this is Sphinx. And I've seen photos before it was unburied. I've seen it. So I'm going, okay, it's just one of those photos. What's the big deal? But you see, like, down and to the side of it, you're seeing, like, if you were standing in front of it, you're seeing the right side and, like, at an upper angle, and you're looking down this thing. You don't see the paws to it. You don't see any of that. What you do see is the top of the back, and you see the head, but the mouth is literally sticking out, like almost like, the little grays they were talking about with the walnut-shaped eyes? That's what you see. It's weird, and it's like, and just had these funky looking eyes. Now, over the years, be through the religions or whatever it may be, you've seen this happen in Sumerian, in Samaria, where they're just like defacing these statues, all this other stuff, and then they try to, what they thought was the right photo, they try to put, or not photo, but the right face, they tried to reconstruct it into like a man's face or whatever they tried to do. Like, and they've done this on a lot of statues, not just the Sphinx. So I'm going, wait a minute. What is this photo of this thing on its face? Because it literally is coming out like this. It's just weird. And it was the very first photo that I've ever seen that looked like that. And when I showed it to you, you even went, what the hell is that? You go ahead and send it to me. And I sent it to him. And that was pretty wild. I'm not sure I'm going to pronounce this right, so forgive me if I'm not butchering you there. B. Stromnez. Thank you very much for your support. Much appreciated. So these guys are great. These whether it's just support, just verbally or any kind of support, is just awesome.
Yeah,
I got a great bunch of subscribers here. Mr. Carson, if you could go on a journey with an alien civilization or spaceship / spaceship for 1 year, would you do it? You know what?
After I analyzed them a little bit and observed them and found out what they like to eat, they sure they don't want to eat me.
Oh.
There's a famous Twilight Zone episode from the 1960s called "To Serve Man." I recommend everybody find that and watch it. It was pretty interesting because they came with a book to serve man, and they went to to speak to mankind, and they landed all over the planet. They started an exchange program. And ironically, the book was a cookbook.
Guess what? You're going to be on the menu. It's like, let's not do that.
If I can discern that they didn't have that they were benevolent and not malevolent, I would probably go. It's always been my mission to leave this planet. I don't believe that I'm destined to die on Earth. Just my personal opinion. I've been saying that for a very long time, for decades. I feel like I'm destined to move out into the stars, whether it's to Mars or wherever. I just don't feel like it's my destiny to die on this planet. So I most likely would take the risk and go. In my mind, I've already lived a life of 20 men.
Mm-hmm.
The things that I've done in my lifetime, I've experienced almost every emotion and every level of life that you can have on this planet.
Mm-hmm.
Being rich to being poor, from being homeless to having mansions, from traveling the world to not leaving my zip code, from being married to being divorced, from having kids and having grandchildren, traveling around the world, 2.5 times. And so my life is not saying that my life is complete and I'm ready to die, because I feel like I have so much more life to live.
Oh, sure.
But I would probably roll the dice and get on that ship and go for a ride.
I mean, they've asked me before, would you go to Mars, period? And I said, knowing what I know about this planet, meaning the research I've done about it, I would gladly go. Now, my wife's like, are you high? And I'm like, I said, here's the thing. It's kind of like the astronauts where they said, you know what, this is the most important step for man. So, I would love to go. And, of course, I don't think they were really, ready to wrap their mind on what they were going to see. I'm sure they briefed them on what you're going to see when you get there, because these are the photos we've taken from the LROC. We've mapped the moon, God knows how many times. This is what we found. This is where you're going. Okay, but then you get there. It's kind of like you said about the Egyptian pyramids. You could see it in photos. You could see people, how tall they are. People on top of the actual tip of the thing. People climbing it. But there's no way you can wrap yourself around this mammoth kind of structure. And then kind of the same way. How would you react if you were one of these guys and went to the moon and said, oh, my God, what is that? You're literally there in front of it. Is there something still in it? Is it going to attack me? Am I going to get something out of this thing? Is this, it's like every fear you could possibly think of just comes to life. So it makes sense to me that, that would happen. And I don't know. If they said, well, would you go? Yeah. I said, of course. I told my wife, of course I'd go. It's not something you could do over and over again. It's like a once in a lifetime thing. So, you know what I'm saying? So I think that's a very good possibility. So, but let's see here. We're about to wrap this up here. So, what? But anyway, Billy's actually running out of time. I was just glad that you could see it right there. He wrote on there, I got to run. So he's definitely going to take off. And we already said we'll probably do it for a couple hours anyway because of his busy schedule. So Just hang around once we do get off here, Billy, the live feed. But yeah, so I'm going to let everybody go. Thanks for everybody and all your support. And of course, Billy, thank you for spending some time with us. It is appreciated. We'll have you on again. Everybody couldn't wait. They're like, oh, I can't wait till Billy comes on. He's so knowledgeable. And well, they're not lying. So many thanks to all the support, like I said, and many thanks for everybody coming on here. If you haven't subscribed, if you're new just watching this, go ahead and subscribe and hit that little notification bell so you'll know every new video coming out. And guys, I do have that moon coming up. You guys are going to be blown out of your socks. So stay tuned for that as well. People are saying, like Mike saying, thank you, Billy, man. Great show. Billy, you are fantastic, man. James Cragen says, thank you, Billy. Renee says, thank you, Chris, brother. Mike says that. You guys are awesome, man. You know, like I said, these guys, I couldn't ask for a better bunch of subs. They're just great. So everybody have a great night. Have a great weekend. Great having everybody on, including you, Billy, of course. And we'll see everybody soon.